Okay, I think we're at 35 minutes past. I think let's kick off. So, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the October edition of JoziPUG and Cape Town Pug. Can't believe we're already in October. This year really seems to be flying past. Now, hopefully everyone got the message that this is going to be online, so hopefully we have more people joining in as it goes through. I did see some of the notifications coming through at least, but we will be uploading the recording to YouTube that everyone can access it afterwards. Okay, so the agenda tonight, we're going to go through in the news, some new updates coming through, and then Michael's going to take us through the Mermaid PCF control. And then Tennis is going to take us through how to build your first PCF control. And then we're going to finish off the session with a bit of a community discussions around PCF controls. It's a bit deeper if you find it useful, if you've got any comments or questions, and then we'll open up to the general floor. Okay, let me just check here. That's all fine. And we're good. Perfect. Okay. So in the news, some exciting things coming out. The one thing that I think has been needed for quite a while is plans inside of Power Platform. Now, I'm sure that we've all built apps before. You very seldom dive straight in and start building out an app. You usually sit down with the teams, understand what that end-to-end use case looks like, understand the components, what your data source looks like. And this is usually done very ad hoc and externally with lots of different tools. Now we're bringing in the capabilities to do it directly in the Power Platform. So this way you can get it out. It looks like they're bringing in loop components and a couple of other things to help put this together and help it so that you can collaborate with each other on this. I think this is going to be a real game changer to help make sure we get things done effectively. Now, this is busy rolling out in an early adopters program. Just check out the Power Apps blog. You'll be able to sign up for this to get onto that rollout. Okay. No other timelines available at this stage. Next one, we showed this off a couple of months ago. There was that great video that the marketing team did where you could now dictate or transcribe what you're doing when you're busy doing a recording with Copilot, with Power Automate Desktop. This is now in public preview. So you should see when you start kicking off a new recording with Power Automate Desktop, you can go through, talk to it, dictate what you're doing, and it will help to understand and articulate that to help you build out your workflow. We've also added the ability now in Power Automate Desktop to create a workflow from a prompt. So you put your description in and Power Automate Desktop is going to do the rest for you. So very similar to what you get in the normal Power Automate interface in the cloud, we now bring in that capability now down to the desktop as well. So I think this is just going to help scale it out a bit more. Other thing I came across was we've released a bunch of documentation around intelligent application workloads. This is all part of the Power Platform well-architected framework. So this includes a lot of documentation on doing things the right way, bringing in things like responsible AI, design principles, deployments and testing. So for those who want to make sure they're doing things by the book, some great resources here to help get you going. And you'll see we'll continue to develop and improve around these things and bring in additional documentation and content. Another really exciting one is data masking at a column level. So this has been something that's been around for a while, and with us working with sensitive information, you can see now that you can do the masking on a specific field so that way you can make sure that we are protecting data. I think this is one thing that we've been waiting for a long time. With this feature, the admin can go in and mask sensitive fields and essentially eliminate the risk of that sensitive data being leaked outside of the organization or copied out. So there are a couple of settings rolling out inside of this. This is now in public preview. So go and check it out and see how it can help you. Other one is virtual table to Dataverse native tables relationships. So you're now going to be able to create a relationship mapping from that virtual table to that native table inside of Dataverse. So this way it can help make sure that you're getting all the visibility and insights that you need, even when you're bringing in these virtual tables from other areas. So you can get that unified data view across the board. And then last one I just wanted to mention before we move on is Ignite is coming up next month. So it is running online from the 19th to the 21st. The in-person was sold out in almost a single day, but the online, of course, still registrations available. So go in, register, check it out. There's going to be some great announcements coming out there. We've always got a great Power Platform track inside there, as well as all the new AI announcements. There's probably going to be a lot around co-pilots and everything else. So definitely go check it out. We will, of course, be doing a summary in the December meetup, probably, just covering everything that was discussed, some new exciting things coming out. So definitely register, check it out. Looking forward to seeing you all there. And with that, is there any other news that anyone else might have picked up or they want to discuss or talk about or mention?
Nope, all good, my side.
Okay, perfect. So thanks, everyone. With that, Michael, I'm going to hand over to you.
Good afternoon, amazing people. I am sitting right next to Jonathan, although you wouldn't know, would you? Well, now you do because I told you. There I am. My camera refuses to work on my PC, so I can't turn it on. So let's do this. My screen coming through? Okay, cool beans. So team, what I'm going to do, one. Thank you. I'm going to spend about 10 minutes, actually maybe 15 minutes. I'll give Tinus less time. Talking a little bit about PCF controls and doing a specific demo of one that I built recently, which I personally think is amazing. It's not my ability, it's the control itself. So I'm excited to show you this one. But just before I jump into giving you a demo of that PCF control, just 2 minutes. What is a PCF control? So PCF essentially stands for Power Apps Component Framework. And this allows you to build your own user interface elements that go into a Power App, whether it's Canvas or model driven or into Power Pages. So, you know, you like when you build a Power App today, you can go insert and you've got a whole bunch of controls, you know, date pickers, drop down boxes, sliders, etc. But maybe you want your own kind of custom control. And that's when you go and build a PCF control. And you can also go and there's a whole community of people that are creating them and publishing them. So if you go to pcf.gallery, then you'll see this. And so there's hundreds here. I would say the majority are were designed specifically for model-driven apps, but it doesn't mean that they're exclusive to model-driven apps. You can also use them in Canvas apps and Power Pages. It just depends how they were built. As to which ones they'll work in, but there's a whole bunch and they categorize them. This is actually quite a cool one. This is a PCF control that uses Azure Communication Services for live voice and video calling, like peer-to-peer chat. And so that's just like, I think, amazing. Anyway, and you can go and, you know, break them down by category. So one that I thought was quite funky, A, B, C, D, F, G, see how I'm trying to figure this out. Kanban. This is only because David said that the Kanban one is cool, but there's multiple Kanban controls. But anyway, so, you know, there's either ones you're going to build or there's ones that are in a, you know, library you can go and download and reuse, etc., etc. And so let me dive into the one that I'm going to show you, which is all about this library called Mermaid. So I was introduced to this library a while back, and essentially what this library is it's a JavaScript library that you can reference in a normal web app. And what it does is you give it markup text, and it takes the text and it generates like a chart or a graph or a quadrant diagram or a mind map or a timeline, etc. So, you know, all these different things on the left-hand side here. And just to give you a sense of how it kind of like functions, you'll see here, this text, this markup generates this over here. So if I went and changed this and did that type of thing and ran it, then you'll see it changes. So essentially the library reads this and generates this, or reads this markup here and generates this. And off we go with all these different examples of how it's just text or markup. And as you edit this, then essentially your diagram can change. And so I looked at this and I thought, hey, how cool would it be if I could have a control in a Power App that essentially renders this? So that's the PCF control that I built. I have published it online, so you can go and get it from this repository over here. I'll pop that in the IAM window in a second. So you can go and look at the source. You can see how it was built, and you can download the managed and unmanaged version of it. But essentially the way it works is here I've got a Power App. So I've got a screen, and I now want to insert this control. So if I go to plus now, you'll see I've got under code components this extra one called the Mermaid JS viewer. That's what I called it. So I'm just going to add that. And so here is the control over here. And this control, I created a few properties on it. So you'll see it's got a markup property, an image stretch, a CDN version, and a few others. So the markup one is essentially the text markup that I want to use. So I'm going to get the text markup from this text box over here. So this text box, I can't even remember what it's called, text input one. So I'm going to set markup equal to text input one dot text. Okay. And so let me just run this. So what should happen is if I put markup in here, then it should render on the right-hand side. So let's go and take some of this. Let's start off with the easiest one. Let's just copy this here and jump in and paste that in. Hey, look at that. Look at that. And so I've got a few properties, like I can change the theme.
That is so cool.
I'm going to change the size.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty darn cool, hey? And so let's just try a few other examples. They'll probably, you know, knowing what I've done, blow up. But let's take this one here. Hey?
Oh my word.
It is so cool. Look, the PCF controller obviously is cool. I bought that. That's amazing. But that's actually, it's so small what I've put in there. It's actually all about referencing this third-party JavaScript library.
My word. That is exciting.
Very cool. So as long as you can, you know, generate this, and you can imagine how you might generate this. This might come from records in a table. This might, you know, you might hard code it. But you can imagine how you might generate this to create your diagrams, your pie charts, your graphs. I mean, there's so many different examples.
This could potentially give us what we don't have at the moment with Dataverse, is giving us the example of our relational database. Like, you know.
Yeah, you could take read the relationships and then ask it just to generate this. That is an awesome idea.
I know.
You are so going to do that. Hey, you are so going to do that. And you know what's even cooler is you don't really need to know how to write this. I mean, you can go into the documentation and learn how to do this, which I think is useful.
Yeah.
But you could use Gen AI to generate this. And you know what I did? I did an example.
Look at you.
Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. So check here. So here's, I've got a story. So the example here is like what does a technician do in the day of their life? Maybe it's an exit interview. They're doing an exit interview and they're describing what they do. And maybe even you doing it, like you're capturing it via voice and then you're converting it to text. Anyway, the point is Here's the text: 6 a.m. wake up, get ready for the day. Freshen up, have breakfast, prepare for work, drive to the first job site. Here's just, words that describe what the person does, right? And so I'm going to click this generate button, and it's going to take this and it's going to convert it into markup for Mermaid. So there's the markup for Mermaid from the story. And now obviously this can be bound to that control, that PCF control. In fact, I've done that as well. So if I just jump here, so there is now this person's story, the day in the life of a technician.
Oh my word! This is so cool.
That is so good. That is just so good.
Like,
so good,
I'm thinking this is making my mind run with so many ideas. This is like project stuff that you normally struggle so much with SharePoint just to display the thing proper.
Yeah. And like maybe it was actually more like the story was like this. The text below shows the comparison of sales between different provinces in South Africa for a retail company called Contoso. And then I just put this in, I don't know, it's 181. Generate. And now it's generated a graph. I really actually, let me just do this so that it should probably, okay, so it's generated it like this. It's maybe not what I want. I'm just going to pop this on the screen here. It's going to look a bit weird, but anyway, let's go with it. Create this as a pie chart. Whoa! You're like, this is so amazing.
That is just crazy. Oh my word.
So the thing is, Power Apps chart capabilities aren't that great at the moment unless you leverage Power BI and those type of things. This could give you open such a big avenue for you.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I think it's really cool. And so obviously there's I showed you the control. I'm not going to show you how I built the control. That Tinus is going to show everyone how you build controls, and then you can go and look at it. But the other thing I am doing here is obviously the conversion of like natural language to this markup by clicking generate. And what I'm doing here is I've got an AI builder prompt that's doing it. So the AI builder prompt accepts this text input and then generates the markup, which is what this is bound to here. And let me just quickly show you that. Sorry, I should have had this open up in a separate tab.
This is very cool, Mike.
It is so cool.
We seriously need like a how-to in a day, but with all the cool stuff that you've been building.
Okay, let's go here to prompts. So here's the prompt called Create Mermaid Markup. And this is how big the prompt is. It's this here. So basically the prompt is generates semantically correct Mermaid JS markup for the text provided below. You determine based on the context of the text the best graph type to use to represent this information in Mermaid. So remember, like the first time it did a Gantt chart, and then it did like that thing until I overrode it and said, hey, make it a chart. And then here's the input text. So that's just the story that's coming in. So, I mean, this is it. And then if I just test this, just to show you, I got this generating this as JSON. So there's the, so that's why I did use GPT-4o. This was much better than 3.5.
Okay.
And I actually notice, Jonathan, there's the preview tag on this is gone, which is quite cool in AI Builder. And I've got the format to spit it out as JSON. So that's why it's always coming out as a JSON format. And that's it. That's how it's working.
Yeah. That's amazing.
This is absolutely mind-numbingly cool.
David, you know where I thought it would be very cool is, you guys have got your automation scenario where you have, you configure workflow, but when you put it in the UI, it's linear, like it's each record represents a step in the workflow, but when you show it in the app, it's one on top of each other, even though actually step 2 goes to step 6, and like there's. So you could take that structure and pass it in here, and let it generate like a sequence diagram or a flow chart, so you could see it better of how it actually goes.
Yeah, it's amazing. That is unbelievably sexy.
Very, very. I have to agree. I understand what the wow was about, David. I do get it.
Yeah, I never understood mermaids, but now it's just a whole new appreciation.
This is awesome.
So there we go, team. I'm gonna sign off and I'm gonna hand over to Tinus. Thanks, team.
Thanks, Mike. That was great.
Man, that's a tough act to follow now.
No pressure.
No pressure at all.
I'm just like blown away. I'm like I need to focus now. But anyway, let me share my screen quickly. Okay, it's going to be that one. And
so Tinus, I've got I'm going to show the drag and drop Kanban as well. But only if there's time left. So I think you continue with this one, and then I've got the Scott Duro drag and drop Kanban ready as well for demo. So, but I think you go now, and then I'll go after you.
Great, no problems. I'm going to be quick as possible because I don't want to bore you to bits. After that one Mike did, I don't think it's going to be hard. But anyway, so basically, if you build it, they will come. The idea behind a PCF. What is a PCF? Well, easy peasy. It's a component framework that, just like Mike showed you, it enables you to build sophisticated UI components, custom things that we want, using the standard web technologies like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and so forth. Why do we use it? Well, firstly, customization. You want to make your stuff look different. Just on that, guys, looking different. Am I presenting the right screen?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you want to customize it. You might have a customer that has a specific corporate identity that they use or a branding methodology. So for that, or you might run into areas like what we just saw with that brilliant Mermaid component that Power Apps just doesn't have the capability to do what we want there. So you build a component framework to do that. Reusability. The nice thing about it is you package it, you can reuse that component anywhere at the end of the day. Performance. Really, the performance on these things are really amazing. Standardization, you've built it once, you use it throughout. And obviously the community support, once again, the forums like Mike showed us, where everybody can help you out or where you can get built components already. Or their limitations. So this is something that you have to consider, before building a PCF. And a PCF is not always the answer. I mean, if you go listen to what and David mentioned him, Scott Giroux says, you should consider a lot of things before building a PCF, because they can get complex sometimes. Deployment is a process. It's not as easy as our Power Apps to deploy. Where you need to bring it in. And then obviously there's some limitations. So you could build stuff which is not compatible with Power Apps. Browser compatibility always plays an issue. It might be compatible in one browser and not the next. And then obviously version control and version updates also to be considered. And you might have apps using older versions, those type of things. So how do we do it? I'm going to show you. So the first thing, obviously, install Node.js. And then obviously we just verify that it's installed. I use Visual Studio Code because, and I mean, it's just a matter of preference, but it's also with Visual Studio compatible. And then we're going to create a folder, and we're going to then create the PCF. So I'm just going to open this here. Can you see my screen?
Yep, your VS Code screen. Yes. PowerPoint.
Just wanna, I'm on PowerPoint now.
We could see your Visual Studio, and then
okay, there we go.
There we go.
Yeah, that looks good.
All right, I just want to just get something on this side running. All right. So I've now, as you can see here, created a folder, which is the first step in doing that as such. So, and then we can just verify that Node.js is installed, and then obviously what is the version of Node. So we're just going to go npm. Oh, I must type here version, and it's going to tell me what the version is of. And then we can go node.v, and it's also going to tell me what the version is. So now with that, I've verified that my Node.js is installed, and I can now start, building my PCF. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a directory. So for you old school guys, this should be quite easy for you guys. Make directory, or MD directory is the command we use there, and then obviously change directory to make sure that we're in that directory. Then we're going to create another directory, and this is where the PCF actually sits. So that's quite easy. We make the directory again, and then obviously we change the directory again to
Ines, we've got a question in the chat just asking if you could potentially zoom in a little bit.
Let's see if I can go Control++. How's that?
That is definitely better.
All right. Sorry, guys. I should have asked if you guys can read it nice and clear. So we'll just use the terminal for now. And then, so this is how, and now that we've, set up a little environment, this is where the juice now gets involved. So we're just going to say, I just want to move that so I can see it. And I might have got one too many there, so I can't see it. So we're going to go PCF initialize, namespace. I'm just going to use the sample. I'm going to use the standard command to do that. So it has now basically just created all the dependencies we need. And maybe a good idea would be if I go into file, open folder, and we are in JP demo and source, select folder, and then we can see it. And I go terminal, new terminal, and we're in there. So now you can actually see what it has populated for us there, as such. And I might have to just get into the folder there. No, I'm in the wrong one. I'm in the right one. Here I am. And it's going to be okay. There's the CD. All right, so now we're in there. So we've ran this script. I'm just going to put it there again. which then installed the dependencies that we require there. The next thing that we're going to have to do is run the npm install. So we're just going to go back, clear this one. And we're going to go there. And it's now telling me it's going to do the charge.js. I'll show you that later. But yeah, so now it just runs it through, and there we go. Easy as pie. Now it's installed all the dependencies. You've seen on the side how it's now added all the modules for me and created the project field and so forth. So once that is done, we will now go to the control, drop it down there, the control manifest, and we're going to open that. And obviously I need to make this smaller. And we are going to just say here where it says namespace, we're going to go and change this to 1.0.0. And we are going to change this description key just to that. That's just two quick ones. Where it does really make sense to do some, these are the properties that we're going to reference. So we're going to change that to name, and we're going to change that to name. And then the description key, we're just going to say a name. Easy as that. Important, just save it. Control S, it's done. And then the very last thing, because we want to use some CSS, and you see how nice it is. They actually give us the code here. We're just going to copy that out there and put it in there. Now, obviously, we don't have that file, so we need to create it. So we're going to make sure the control manifest is still selected, because we want it on the same level. And we're going to click on new folder, and we're just going to call this CSS. Easy as that. Then we're going to open CSS, and we're going to say, and I'm just going to make sure that we don't have any typos. So I'm going to select that, and we're going to add that, and we are going to do that. Now, just put some basics. So now we've added some a style sheet to this to make sure that that which we see, looks all right. And I'm just going to put some basic styling in there. And I'm going to save it. And once I've done this, it's quite important, because the index.ts, which we're going to use to build what we want to do, is going to reference the control manifest. But we've changed properties with the control manifest. So what I want to do is I want to run the build so that when I do the changes in the index.ts, that the references are updated. Otherwise, it's going to give us some errors. So I'm just going to do that, and I'm going to run it, and there we go. So now it's just running the build to establish those. And easy peasy, done. So now we're going to open the index.ts file. And in here, guys, this is where we're going to do the juice. And I've now obviously done the code and saved it separately. So I'm going to paste it in and out. But essentially what you need to change is you need to find just above the constructor method. And this is where, you put the reference properties and your context, your container. That goes in there. And this is just telling you that it's a HTML div element, component framework, and then obviously edit is edit mode. So it gives it a Boolean. So it's obviously a true or false. And then the name property is a string. So that tells you these variables or these classes that we are referring to, or what type that is, obviously. Then we're going to look at the initiate public init property here, and they make it quite easy for you because they tell you exactly where you need to add it. So you can just add that there. And then obviously I've got an error there. I'll check now why that's there. The update view. So well, we want to update the view, obviously. We can do that there. And then the destroy is obviously the last one that we need to do. And I'm just going to do this and do that. Just basically copy it out or whatever. So now I've done this. Easy as that. And now all that I need to do is run the build again. So now I've added everything I want to. I'm going to run my build again. And what I've built here is a simple text label, which I can click and edit and click and edit. That's all I've done here. So it's a little container. And now I'm going to show you what I've built. But I'm also going to show you what you can do with it. And there we go. So there's your first component. Easy peasy. And I don't know why it's not showing it to me at the moment. Am I missing something? Let's see. Let's see what I'm missing. Let's try this. I should have something here giving me a problem.
I think you've still got a comment on line 1. Your first line, you've got a weird, it was just something you need to comment out.
Yeah, it was, it's my script.
Your notes. Your notes,
my
yeah.
notes. Let me do it again. There we go. And I think I still have that Z up there as well. That looks better. It's not updating, it's don't know why. Let me do this. It's always fun. Control S. And we're going to run the build again. The nice thing about let's run the build again. And that's closed. All right, and then we start it up. And there we go. Easy as that. So now I can go edit, add and go save, and go edit. And I'm just using motorcycle names, a bit of a motorhead. So, and there we go. Now this component which you saw in the method that Michael showed you, you can now package and you can import this into your own Power App, and then it's usable. But let's say I'd like to add a chart to this. I want to do a little visual at the bottom here, and this is where PCFs become very cool. I'm going to do that. I'm going to right control break, and I'm going to stop there. And now I'm going to install. Now, it's not going to install because I've already installed it, but it should probably just run again. And it's done easy as that. And now I'm going to take some other code, and I'm just going to put that in here. It's the same code. I've just told it to start reference this chart component. And it's done. We're going to go up. And we're going to say run the build. Obviously, you need to run the build. I need to, and it's running the build. And then we are going to say start. So we're going to say Honda save. And we're going to say edit. Then we're going to say, hopefully I spelled that right. And there you go. And we're going to say, easy as that. And there you go, guys. 15 minutes and you have your first component.
That is so cool.
That's
It's amazing what you can do in such a short period of time once you figured it out, though. Hey,
look, the code, but I mean, it's as I said, it's the code that you know makes it work. But it's HTML, CSS, and JavaScripting, and you can leverage libraries, and there's so many cool things out there that you can use to make your Power application bespoke. Talking about rolling menus and there you go. Don't get me started. I'm not going to stop. So,
the other day I saw somebody who even built a mermaid control using it.
The problem is, can you control the mermaid? Or the question as such. But in short, the gist of the PCF is the control manifest, which tells you, which brings your construct together, the index, and obviously that which you want to add to it. Now you can if you think of a web application, those of you have a lot better web development background than what I have. How you can structure and what you can actually do within this PCF. So, yeah.
That was very cool, Tinus.
That's great. All right. Thanks, Tinus.
Thanks.
So, yeah, coming up, I'm going to show one of the other PCF controls from the gallery. So I'm going to share my screen and let me know if you can see it.
Nothing happening yet.
We can't see it. Still can't see it.
Yeah,
Still can't see it.
Your slow internet in Stellenbosch.
There we go.
David, you're not very far from them, are you?
All right. So if you're going to have a look at that wonderful PCF gallery, and it's definitely worth having a look at it, because there's many very cool, projects in there. But one of them is a project called Power Drag and Drop from a gentleman by the name of Scott Duro. And this takes Kanban boards to a whole new level. The issue is with Kanbans, typically in Power Apps, you have these nested galleries. And what you then do is you have a horizontal gallery, and then you have nested vertical galleries inside of them. And even though it's possible to do, what we found was when rendering, it could become quite slow if you have a large set of data. So in those instances, we've started using this power drag and drop control, and it's not only cool that you could drag and drop, it's also extremely performant. So what you have is, can everybody see my screen, and is it large enough?
Yep.
Could get a little bit bigger. If you can zoom in a little bit, that might help. There we go. Perfect.
All right. So what you'll see is there's a very straightforward screen here, and in here we've got a container, and in the container we've got 3 of these power drag and drop controls. So we've got one for the new status, one for in progress, and one for completed. And what these controls then tie back to is a collection of projects. And the idea is that each one of these projects have a name. So that you'll have new entrance, new gate, new door, and new floor as project names. And then you've got statuses for each, that where, in other words, where in the project when the process that project is. Now, the concept of this drag and drop control is that you could drag and drop these projects between lanes and then automatically update the statuses in the actual data source. And that doesn't matter whether that data source is a collection, or whether it's a SharePoint list, or whether it's a Dataverse entity, it doesn't matter. You could drag and drop it in the front end, and you've got full control over how you update the back end as a result of this. So just some key concepts. You'll see that there are multiple controls. You could also add one control into a horizontal gallery, which will automatically just iterate that control horizontally, so that if you have dynamic statuses in the process, or any other kind of field that you want to update, it doesn't necessarily need to be a status field. It could be another field like resources who this project is assigned to, or project managers. So it could be a name or a person field. So then you would typically not hard code this in such a way where there's only 3 controls. You'll then have the control added into a horizontal gallery. So what you will then also see is there is an items property, and that's just tying back to the actual data source. It's obviously very important that you specify the items and then also the fields which you're planning to display in the control. So you'll see over here we've got the new entrance, which is the project name. We've got the status, and then we've got the record ID. And in order to display these, you might need to make sure that you add the fields under the data selection, which is very similar to any gallery or table control that you're used to at the moment. So the second property that's very important is the ID column. So you need to tell the control which column in the data source holds the primary key for the records. And it does a whole bunch of cool things around that. So it knows which ID to give you when you're performing actions against it or updates. So this is a very important column. So right at the bottom, you've got the zone column, which is the column that essentially defines which lane this record shows up in. So in this case, in our project example, we've got the status column because that holds the status for the project. And then you'll also see, all right, so those are the first key properties. You'll also see the drop zone ID. In other words, which status should you display, or records in which status should be displayed in this control. So you'll see there is 1.new. If we go to the in progress one, you'll see this says 2.in-progress, and that's how it basically knows where to surface the records, in which control to show you the actual records. And then there's also a property. Yep. Sorry?
That was just some background noise. Carry on, I've muted.
Okay. And then there's the last property, which is other drop zone IDs. And this essentially means which other drop zones, so which other, think of a drop zone as a lane or a swim lane or a panel, which of these could this one interact with? So if I'm currently in new, I can say that this items from this control could interact with the both of these others. So it could interact with in progress as well as completed. So what this gives you is the ability to not only reposition these things vertically, so you could change the position of these things in a specific lane, but you could also drag them to show up in the other lane. So you could dynamically change the status of these things by dragging and dropping it between these different lanes. And this is basically what that gives you. Now, at the bottom, you'll see that I've added another gallery. And this gallery just references the first control, which is the one that displays the new one. But you'll see that that is set as a master zone. So that does all of that controls basically all of the other zones on the screen. So if you want to know which records have changed and what's happening with all the positioning of the lanes and the records, you can reference that master zone and reference the current items property. And that'll give you very simple PowerFX representation for each one of these records. So you'll see at the moment, all of them are in the new status. If you have a look at the gallery at the bottom, and if I drag the new entrance or ID number 1 to in progress, you'll see that that now automatically updates in this gallery or in that property, that output property from the component. And you could then use this to actually patch the data source. So you could have a commit button that says you want to write this down, or you could automatically do it the moment that you drag and drop. You just update the data source with the new position. What you could also then do is have certain business rules to say that you can't move this project directly. You can't move it back to new from in progress if the first certain conditions haven't been met. So you can build in all different business logic around that. All right, so that's pretty awesome. But in addition to all of that awesomeness, it gives you full HTML control over and CSS control, by the way, on displaying and creating templates for this. So you'll see that this is a very basic template that it's displaying over here, but you've got full control over what that looks like. So if I can have a look at the item template property, you'll see this is giving us inline CSS, and we can then simply go and update this to change the look and feel of these templates. So these things could look awesome. We've had some projects with these things. We've actually worked with Scott Duro on a project, together with Scott on a project where he built this for the application, and the look and feel of that was phenomenal. So there's actually quite a lot of power in just that one bit, because Power Apps will render this whole control at once. Even if there's 500 items in that control, it renders at once. It doesn't render individual controls as would have been the case for a gallery. So it is very, very performant. And what you can then do as well is you'll see that there's a button over here that says launch, and that's not a Power Apps control. That's just essentially a button class that you specify in that item template. And then if you click on that, you can reference that by looking at the on action output property for this control, and you'll see that if the self that's referring to this actual Kanban or this control, if the action name is launch, then just notify what the action item ID is, and that's the record ID from the data source. So you could then build in actions in here or PowerFX to go and open up a form or navigate to another screen to actually show the user the details of this item, or open up a panel, screen panel on the right to show a select field, number of fields from that item, and then update it accordingly. So what that does, if you click on it, you'll see at the moment it just notifies me of what the selected record ID is, where you could then use all of that other logic to build in additional functionality. So I think this is, if you've ever done any sort of Kanban work in a Power App, this is an absolute must. It's just so fast, so responsive, and anything else that you try and do in Power Apps with a Kanban will not give you this functionality of dragging and dropping it between the different lanes. You'll have to use buttons to move this thing left or right. And if the users expect this kind of functionality, you'll struggle to give it to them without a PCF control, or then more specifically, the drag and drop PCF control from Scott Duro. So any questions?
Yeah, do you mind, David, going back to where you defined the HTML for the look and feel? I just wanted to understand your closing tag there. Yeah, what's bottom?
Oh, that's hilarious.
You saw that pretty quickly. Yeah.
It works, though. It works.
It did work. That's what's scary.
Doesn't seem to be too phased by it.
Yeah.
But it's
So
not the button
works.
that's really working. It's we're doing an action if the name is launch.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't really worry about it. In proper HTML, that wouldn't have worked.
I just think bottom is much better.
And then you'll see here is the actual mustache or handlebars that it uses to inject the values from the data set into the HTML. So that's why it's displaying the project name and the ID in the way that it is. So any other questions?
Bar the bottom tag.
Yeah.
That was awesome, David.
Yeah,
Thanks.
so go and check it out. It's pcf.gallery/power-drag-drop. And if you click on download over here, it's going to take you into Scott's GitHub repository. And over here, it's got a whole explanation of how to actually configure this with some very nice examples. So this is what it could look like if you spend some time on that item template and CSS and HTML. So this is really a phenomenal tool to add to your toolkit.
Oh, this is really cool. A lot of cool stuff that you guys are showing. Hey, I need to start playing.
Yeah, it's like PCF controls are like, I think it just opens up a whole new area of possibilities in Power Apps, both model driven and canvas.
Yeah.
So we also have a whole list of things that we want to build with PCF controls, and I think it's going to be a popular skill to have in future, definitely.
Not to be that person in the room, right? But I have to ask.
Licensing.
So it's got to be licensing, yes. So can you use PCF without using anything premium, or is that a premium feature?
That's a good question. Never thought of that.
It's not a premium feature. I think anybody can use PCF controls.
Yeah, it's not premium as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, and what we can maybe do is Michael, if you want to build like a decision tree of Power Apps licensing different packages and options in your new Mermaid controller.
That would be awesome.
Great. So I think that's it from me. If there's no more questions on the Power Drag and Drop. Olaku, you've got a question?
Yes, thank you. So this one is not more on this, this drag and drop. I mean, on this PCF control can also be used on Power Pages.
Yes.
Is it? Okay. No. Thanks. I'll try it then.
Yeah, I haven't used it on Power Pages, but yeah, it'd be great if it can.
No, I have. It's actually look, it's originally done for model-driven apps, and obviously it's Canvas compatible or grew into Canvas as well. And then obviously it is available on Power Pages.
Okay.
And then, like Michael mentioned in the chat, is there anybody else in the room that's worked with PCFs in the past, or any experience that you guys have that you want to share?
I've just dipped my toe into the PCF control. So I tried the easiest one, which was just putting an export to Excel button on the app. So, but yeah, the stuff that you guys are doing is amazing.
There's a pretty cool PCF available, and it's in the PCF gallery to export a document to PDF, which is also pretty cool.
Ooh, I might be using that one, Tinas, because I'm going to need something like that soon.
It's a pretty cool one. It's well built.
Okay, cool.
Does it work better than the current native PDF functionality in Power Apps, Tinas?
No comment.
Okay. Great. Anybody else that has anything to share along PCF controls?
Just a quick one from my side. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Am I audible enough?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just wanted to check if are you able to integrate your PCF components to be able to interact with your external data source, and if so, how would you be able to use them? Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't hear the. Can you repeat the question?
I've dropped it on the chat.
Yeah, so I guess there's two ways that works. One is you can build it so that it, takes collections that you've defined, let's say in your Power App. So you've got a Power App collection that you've got from a data source, whichever data source you've got it from, it doesn't matter. And essentially that collection can be bound to a property, and then in your custom PCF control, you do something. So for example, you want your own type of grid control to show records. So it doesn't matter where the data source is. You've used a connector in the Power Platform or in your Power App to connect to that data source, or Power Automate, it really doesn't matter. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is you may have a PCF control you want to code that PCF control to only ever use a specific data source. So maybe it's a specific weather services REST API. So you would code your PCF control to talk to that web API, and that's essentially the feature of your PCF control. Because at the end of the day, a PCF control is, in quotes, just JavaScript that runs in the browser. So it can technically talk to any REST API directly if you wanted it to. Obviously, there's things you need to worry about, like authentication and stuff, if you need to authenticate. But yeah, so to answer your question, yes, and there's just the two ways depending on what you want to do.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Anybody else that has anything to share on PCFs?
Just in December, when we do our challenge around games in the Power Platform, it's going to be interesting to see what people come up with using that and see if they can add any more value. and make things a bit more interesting.
Sure. Is there any other PCF controls from the PCF gallery that anybody has played with or think things are quite cool? Cool. All right, everybody. So I think if there's no more questions or nobody that wants to share anything on the PCF gallery, then I think that's a wrap for the meetup then.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. Glad to see you all online, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks all.
Thanks, team.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Tinas. Thanks, David, for presenting.
Thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
Michael.
Bye-bye.
I'm going to play around with some mermaids right now.
Yeah, I'm also going to be playing around tonight. On.